Hello, everybody. My name is Alfie White. I'm from Xpression FM. Down in Exeter, I'm interviewing Stephanie and Alexander from Cari Cari on behalf of the Student Music Network. How are you both today? What have you been up to recently?
Hey, thank you for having us, Alfie. We've been great. We're actually, we're releasing our album in like 2 weeks, and we've been on the road all year pretty much. I think we're playing 80 shows this year, and we're just in the middle of rehearsing for our tour. So you're catching us mid-rehearsal from our own studio.
Nice. That's so exciting, especially those 80. That's really quite an achievement. So well done, guys.
Yeah, and we gotta make up for all the lost shows we didn't do last year. So it's kind of like from 0 to 150% power, kind of.
Yeah. Yeah, I can imagine. So you were telling me earlier that the name Cari Cari, depending on where you are, the pronunciation changes a little bit. But I want to ask you, when people hear that name, Cari Cari, your band name, what do you want them to think? What kind of images do you strive to convey when people hear that name?
It's a good question. I'm quite happy that you didn't ask this what it means, because it's like the #1 question we always get, right?
Usually the big one, yeah.
Good job. But it's like our answer always is we don't tell anybody, because that way it stays mysterious and interesting. There's like a big backstory that just the two of us share. So I think it's a great name. It's like you can project whatever you want into it. It has some kind of an Italian, Spanish kind of vibe, I think, sometimes, but it works in other countries as well. So I think it's just like a big projection space for everybody. What do you think when you hear Cari Cari?
I kind of thought similar things. I think because when I first heard your music, I thought initially, the name doesn't kind of match up with what I expected the music to sound like. But as I listened to it more and more, I found that it does. It kind of has that kind of I think the best way to describe it is that laid back feel to it that I think is implemented both in the name and then in the music as well.
That's great to hear. So you first thought we were too much up tempo. Is that correct? Oh, good to know. It's always, I love those kind of interviews, because we really learn a lot about ourselves as well. Because like a lot of times, like I've never thought that way, or kind of we recently had like a portrait done of us, and they were saying a lot of things like, that's true. I didn't know that's why we're doing this. I didn't know that's why we sound that way, or like having those influences. It's always kind of interesting.
When you're writing, what do you want people to think? What images do you want to be in people's heads?
I think when the thing with the both of us is that we both never really listen to songwriter music in a way. I was never a big fan of Oasis, who write great songs, or the Beatles, even though, like, of course I love the Beatles, but I always was more drawn to, for example, Jumpin' Jack Flash by the Rolling Stones, because it's just like a cool riff that just rolls on, and I think both of us, we were really into movie soundtracks. So like Ennio Morricone is a big influence for us. Both loved electronic music, which is very like atmospheric. So I think our music, we were always going more for like a vibe. And it's just probably like we're here in our studio, and like Steffi's on the drums or doing something on like a synthesizer, and I'm playing guitar, and we're just experimenting, because both of us were not trained musicians. We don't know what we're doing at all. And so we just work with our feelings, and when we hit a spot, we're like, we would love to like just play this like 5-second segment for the next hour. That's kind of where we start, and then we build on that. So we record that, and then just like write lyrics on it, and kind of just go on until we think like, okay, we love it. We're the best band on the planet. And then normally it's kind of it comes together with having images in our head. And Stephanie would be like, just imagine here, it's like a desert landscape, and there's like a raccoon running through it, and and so that's why actually Stephanie does all of our artworks, our music videos, and all the designs. So it's kind of the visual part is extremely important for us as well. So
Stephanie, when you're writing music, or kind of beginning on that creation of making music, do you have like a visual very clearly in your head from the beginning, or is that something that kind of comes gradually throughout the process?
I think it's a very important part of the process. Like when the pictures start to grow, I get the feeling this is the right way, kind of. So you're in between ways, and I don't know, I get this feeling, oh yeah, this is the picture, this is the way, and it starts to grow.
But I think it might change a lot of times. I think actually Picasso, you know, to compares to Picasso now, to be super relatable. I think Picasso said he always starts wanting to do one thing and ends up doing a completely different thing.
Yeah.
And I think it's something that we learned as well. We start with, you know, like we've got this vibe, but it might lead to somewhere completely different.
Yeah.
And being open to that journey of the song, I think is very important. And it's and we've got loads of different versions, and it might be different visuals and different pictures, but it always has to be like, it has to be something. And actually, because we're rehearsing for the live show as well right now, that's something I said. I think every song should have a very clear identity, you know, when we play it live. Like this is a very, very quiet moment where we're showcasing, you know, like the two of us just singing together, very delicate, you know, just the two of us and stripped down of everything else. And don't have like, if we do that, we don't need to have like a little synth thing or a little extra drum, blah, blah. Like if we do that, we go 100%. But the same thing, if we do something completely bombastic, we also go full on. Like we, last year, we did a concert with an orchestra, with the film orchestra Babelsberg in Berlin. And we had like 100 musicians on stage, you know, and there was like, 3 timpanis and like 40 men in a man's choir. And it's like, you know? And I think that's what we love, like big, bold contrast, you know, like one song is like 100 people going full on, and the next song is just Stephanie singing in my guitar. That's what.
So you talk about identity for each of your individual songs and having that very clear in your live shows. Does that mean you rigorously plan your live shows, try to have them kind of very, very set out, you know what you're doing? Or do you kind of prefer when performing to maybe have like a loose plan and then adapt that depending on like the crowd, the audience, where the atmosphere is out on the day?
Ironically, both.
Yeah.
So I think what we don't like is, as we said before, we hate backing tracks where it's like you play every song in the same tempo every day.
Yeah.
And also we don't really play with set lists. So we always see like, you know, like we can do a very, very quiet set, but we can do like a full on almost Idols-esque, you know, punky set, you know?
Yeah.
And so we always kind of scan the audience and see what's going on and adapting to it. But on the other hand, we're really like the kind of theater aspect of it. So we're kind of planning out our live show with moments, you know. It's like the beginning has to be like a big beginning, and if there's like a dramatic, I don't know the English word for it, you know, it's like a
crescendo.
Yeah.
Kind of builds up. Yeah.
So they have a crescendo, and for example, on our last tour, we had our stage design that also Stephanie did. We had like a big red sun, like a blood red sun that was always behind us. And for the last song, we played Bang 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 by Nancy Sinatra. And Steph had like a gun, you know, like a confetti gun actually. And she was standing inside the red sun, and you could see the silhouette. And so it was like she was doing this, you know, which was like a very strong image. And immediately you could see everybody put out their phone. And then, you know, that's how we ended the concert. So I think it's very, you know, conceptual, you know, having like a real show, not just like a concert. And those are the things I think that are very conceptual and strict in a way. But within that construct, we're like, you know, maybe we play the song doubled, you know, like 20% faster, or we add like 2 parts, or we don't play the song at all and really change it up. But we have those pillars that are.
Well, kind of, it always seems to come back to visuals and these kind of huge images for your band. And I feel like the visual, the image, I guess almost like the cinematic elements is something that's very important to you. Would you agree with that?
100%.
So let's talk a little bit about the new album, which is Welcome to Kookoo Island, which is releasing September 16th, you said, you know, practicing for the tour now. I would kind of want to know, where was the concept of the album birth?
I think it's a very unconscious process for us when starting out. So we were just writing songs, and you know, let's say our whatever we live through or whatever we experience, it all goes through the Cari Cari filter, and without thinking about it, like a few songs come out. And after doing that, we kind of realized that all of the lyrical themes were circling around this feeling of isolation and kind of building our own little world, and it was like, we started obviously during the pandemic, and we were just actually we had a very good time, like we just came back from a tour, and everybody like was shut down, and we basically our studios in the countryside next to a national park, and we just made music. We had the best time. We were really focused. We just spent days just working on a snare sound and experimenting and doing what we love. So we had a very good time, but at the same time felt this, German word that is actually, you can't translate, is Weltschmerz, which is kind of a feeling you get thinking about the state of the world, like a kind of depression. And so I think our urge was to kind of build this world for us, this everything is fine. And that's why, I don't know, all the themes were like submarines, spaceships, islands, kind of that kept on recurring in the lyrics.
And becoming kind of cuckoo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so we kind of tried to come up with a concept that ties it all together. That's why we came up with Welcome to Kookoo Island, which is our very own, very cuckoo island, where, our safe space, so to say, where we can do all the cuckoo things that we do.
When you were trying to translate kind of the themes that we're talking about here, which is like isolation, but having your own space, how did you translate that into the sound of the album? Were there any kind of instruments that you found yourself picking up for the first time, anything that you hadn't utilized before that you found you were using a lot more for the new album?
I think for this album, it was the first time that we had our own studio, really, that we could use all the time. So kind of being more self-sufficient in producing the music, and therefore being able to not needing to, like, if you communicate to an engineer, this snare should be fatter. Yeah, it's like there's not one thing, and so it's very hard to find the right people to be able to translate your creative ideas into engineering, so to say, and just being able to spend those infamous 10,000 hours with our studio and just getting better and better, I think enabled us to utilize the studio as a tool more, as an instrument, almost like with different effects and the mix and the way we layered songs. I think that was kind of the biggest change.
So it's like the project has kind of been in your hands the entire time. You've been at the helm, and if you're going, if you're doing the master as well and doing all the production, it's kind of never strayed far from its original vision, maybe.
Yes.
Okay. So you've been able to
really, this album is really 150% the two of us, which is like, I'm actually excited to work with more outside people for the next album, probably. But it was just the right thing to do right now, So yeah, so it kind of adds to the island idea.
Well, thank you very much for the interview. It's been fantastic.
And Alfie, you're a great interviewer. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. Yeah,
we've had so many shit interviews, and it's really cool. You took so much time, and you really it was really, really good.